Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Basel Pod. I'm Sam Basel, joined alongside Jordan Laube. And Jordan, thank you for holding down the fort for these last couple of weeks for me, while it was kind of a busy season for me. And thank you to Clubfoot Jim and Owen Brown for also stepping in to do our weekly NFL recaps. But it's good to be back. We are 6 weeks into the NFL season. And Jordan, after 6 weeks of games, how are you feeling?
I don't know who's good and who's bad at this point in the season. I almost wanted to scrap our top 10 team breakdown, but we want to stay consistent. For the listeners at home, we obviously missed last week. Both Basil and I were pretty busy in our own personal lives, but for those that listen to the podcast and are looking for, a little bit extra more from us, I did a full breakdown of every Jalen Hurts play against the Giants from week 6. That is over on our YouTube channel at the House Enterprise. You can find all that that video there. You can look at a lot of our other great content we've been putting out, including this podcast, if you want to watch it in video form. But that's going to be a weekly recurrence now. We're going to do tape talk every week. I already have a pull up on my Instagram at the.jordan.laube. You can vote on that poll there and see which film I should be breaking down this week. It's going to be defensive focused, and I believe it is between the Seahawks defense against the Jags, Falcons defense against the Bills, which was a really fun game defensively, and then I believe it was Chiefs defense versus the Lions was the other game.
Yeah, great stuff on that video last week, that breakdown of kind of what went wrong for the Philly offense. We're definitely going to be talking about that game a little bit more, definitely from a little bit more of a Giants perspective. But if you really want to see a full, detailed breakdown of everything that went wrong for Philly, go to our YouTube channel right now, see all the social medias that you see on this banner below, because, I mean, it was fantastic. I watched it through a couple times, and it's, definitely – some of your best work, Jordan. So definitely got to shout that out. But we're a third of the way into the NFL regular season. And like you said, we're really having trouble making heads or tails of where this season is going to end up. Kind of similar if you've been watching the Football House, our other main football show focused on the college game at House Enterprise. It's also kind of really up in the air. It's a very strange fall for football at nearly all levels. For you, Jordan, I mean, I got the playoff picture. It's one of my favorite pages that the NFL puts out on their website every season. Well, it's not really one of my favorites because it's usually just counting down when the Jets get eliminated from the playoffs. But it's interesting for me seeing, how things are shaking out. Just a couple things that, a month and a half ago, our heads would have exploded hearing it. Right now, the 1 seed in the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts, the Chiefs, the 8th seed right now. They're on the outside looking in. The Broncos just ahead of them at 4-2. In the NFC, the Tampa Bay Bucks, 5-1 for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And then, a team like the Vikings, who people were really high on or, thought could make a push this year, also on the outside looking in 9th place in the NFC at 3-2. So for you, I mean, just before we get into the games that we want to talk about from week 6, I mean, is there somebody that you feel like was unexpected that could maintain their spot in the playoffs? And is there somebody that's kind of, maybe hit like a little bit of an early season high and could potentially, it might be tough for them down the stretch in preserving their playoff position?
If we're talking about teams unexpectedly being good, who I think can maintain that success throughout the rest of the year, I think it's the New England Patriots. And I know all of the New England faithful are going to be happy to hear that. And it's a multitude of things. Drake May is playing at an MVP level. He has been incredibly efficient, incredibly safe with the ball, and not just safe, but he takes risk at the right times, and they always seem to pay off. If you take away that week 1 loss against the Raiders, we're looking at the best QB in terms of yardage, yards per attempt, touchdowns, low amount of turnover worthy plays, third down conversions. Like, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And that's including that Steelers game where their offense had 5 turnovers, right? Like, the Patriots very easily could be 5-1 and hell, even 6-0. Like, the Pats team, and their schedule is even easier in the back half of the year, right? So I think the lack of difficult schedule is going to help them keep this pace up throughout the end of the year. And I say that's not me knocking the Pats. They are a good team and better than I expected, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Stephon Diggs has gotten into a groove. Kayshon Boutte's been awesome in contested situations and making big plays. It looks like Pop Douglas is going to get more utilization. Once they get Travion Henderson involved, like he hasn't played great, but he also hasn't had many opportunities to tote the rock as much as someone with the skill set should be. But this has the makings of like, hey, this is a second round rookie. We're keeping him under wraps for the first half of the season. And then when we need more juice, we'll start playing him in the back half of the season. This is someone who I think is going to go off, especially in those last 5 weeks heading into playoffs. And that's going to take this offense from good to great. So there's someone I think who surprisingly is good. And then someone who I think is surprisingly good and may fall off the rails is the 1 seed in the AFC, and that's the Colts. And we see this drop off happen with Daniel Jones throughout his career, where early on in 2022, his best season, the Giants start 6-1. He's playing lights out, high yards per attempt, getting the ball downfield aggressively. And then he makes some dumb throws, and then it starts to unwind. And the Giants finish that season pretty poorly despite making playoffs, right? We might see that same sort of thing happen with the Colts here. And it's a much different situation. Shane Steichen has done an awesome job. But the past couple of weeks, you've seen Daniel Jones not making uncharacteristic throws in terms of his whole career, but as far as this season goes, making some uncharacteristic plays. I mean, he made the right read on a throw against the Cardinals on a rollout, but I think it was Mack Wilson was just standing right in the middle of the route, like perfectly spaced between the QB and the receiver, and he just threw it right at Mack Wilson, right? Like, and it's in his vision, right? So like, and that's been a thing Daniel Jones has struggled with forever. It's just his vision. He doesn't see defenders that well sometimes. And if teams can dial up pressure more and he gets sacked more than he has been lately, I think he'll regress a little bit. And the Colts may still be a playoff team. But again, very much like that Giants team back in 2022, start off strong, finish the season poorly. That could very easily happen here. It'd be interesting to see how they keep it up. Because the defense has, they've been getting moved on, but they made turnovers at the right time. So even without Daniel Jones, when that defense starts to regress back to the mean and isn't making great turnovers and isn't not hungry for the football, I shouldn't say that, but like they don't have a nose for it as much as they do right now, there are a few games that might swing in the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before we get into our 3 games, the other big headline that I wanted to talk about, I wish we had Owen Brown on here to talk about it, but obviously that is the firing of head coach Brian Callahan after a 1-5 start for the Tennessee Titans. Callahan was fired, just a third of the way into his second season with Tennessee. So he finishes, that's his first head coaching gig in the NFL. So right now he finishes his tenure with the Titans at 4-19 overall. Before we get into, the implications of this, just what, aside from, obviously being the team with the first, like coming into the season with the first overall pick, like no one's expecting you to be super hot out of the gate, but why couldn't the Titans really get it together? Was it a tough part of their schedule, or were there just, games that you felt like they kind of gave away?
I think it was the Titans needed absolutely everything to go wrong for other teams in order to get those 4 wins that they got. Callahan was not a good decision maker when it came to when he needed to pass the ball versus when he needed to run the ball in critical 4th down situations, when he decided to go for it, when he decided to kick a field goal, when he decided to punt the ball away. Like, there was no consistency there. Going for 2, there were multiple times they were down by 2 possessions. And there's a big shift in football analytics where if you're down by 14 and it's like the 4th quarter or at any point in the game really, and you score a touchdown, you should go for 2 on that first time you score, because the odds of you winning just increases, right? Just based on 1-to-1 odds, right? it doesn't really take into account the type of team you're playing, where momentum is at in the game, yada, yada, yada. And he was one of the worst in those types of situations of when he decided to go for two, the type of plays he called. And then even outside of football, like roster management, locker room culture, there's a lot of buzz from beat writers and people that are inside the Titans organization that said there was just disarray all over the place. And there are things we're never going to hear about. But I think one of the biggest indictments that has been against him is if you watch any of his press conferences, like head coaches get asked dumb questions all the time and they may give a snarky remark. Like Mike Tomlin got asked a dumb question about Joe Flacco and he gave a snarky remark to the reporters. It seemed like Brian Callahan, whenever he got a question that he didn't like, but was an actual good question, he would just give a disrespectful answer back and kind of knock at the reporter. Right. So, and I can't imagine that doesn't spill over to the locker room in some way, shape, or form. Right. So, with all of that put together, and you're 4-19, and the organization's dysfunctional as it is, like it was just a bad hire to begin with, especially since he had never been a play caller, and not that he's a nepo baby, like because he did pretty well in his coaching career before that point, but his dad being Bill Callahan, who was one of the best offensive line coaches ever and revolutionized offensive line play in the NFL. I think that helped his case of getting hired. Like, hey, I'll bring my dad with me and improve this garbage offensive line that we have right now. And that offensive line never really took the step that we were looking to see with those two in tandem together. So, not great. Titans' brighter days hopefully are ahead as long as, the GM and head coach stick together for more than 2 seasons at this point, because it seems like they can never stick together for more than 17 games, right?
Yeah. One thing that you highlighted, there was a tweet from Ari Myrov yesterday showing, the last 3 number 1 overall picks have had their head coach fired during their rookie seasons, citing Bryce Young in 2023, Caleb Williams in 2024, and then obviously this year with Cam Ward. But you kind of offered a little bit of a silver lining to that by taking it back a little bit and finding some similar situations in the past decade. Trevor Lawrence in 2021 with Urban Meyer, 2018 Baker Mayfield with Hugh Jackson, and Jared Goff in 2016 with Jeff Fisher. Obviously, those guys are all in kind of aside from Trevor Lawrence, both Baker and Goff are on different teams, but they are top tier NFL quarterbacks now, right? Mm-hmm. And then as well as Trevor Lawrence, the Jags are looking pretty good this season. So I understand what Ari was trying to say, and that it is an interesting statistic, but it does kind of make sense that a head coach that coached a team to a number 1 overall pick might get fired shortly after, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to that point, right? Like you brought up a good point. Like Baker and Goff are with different teams, and people might look at what I said, be like, well, is it going to take Cam Ward, Bryce Young, and Caleb Williams to end up with different teams? Yeah. No, but what the Bears and Panthers have done is after they got the player that they wanted, they brought in coaches and management that fit what the number 1 overall quarterback needs. And the Jaguars have done that, and look what's changed for the Jaguars, right? Like it took them a few tries, but Urban Meyer and Doug Peterson were not the answers. Trent Baalke is a laughable GM. I don't know how he kept getting jobs, but he did. But so they bring in Liam Cohen, who ran a historic offense with the Bucs last year, and James Gladstone, who has an awesome draft history with the Rams. And they bring them in, and they're 4-2. And they just had a rough loss to the Seahawks, but we talked 2 episodes ago. This Seahawks defense is crazy good. I went into that game fully expecting the Seahawks to win, and they did pretty handedly. Mm-hmm. So it's not always that teams need or quarterbacks need a total shift, right? Like Bryce Young gets Dave Canales in there, and Dave Canales is a quarterback whisperer, another former Bucs offensive coordinator. And he's taking that next step. The Bears bring in Ben Johnson. Now they just got to get rid of Ryan Poles, right? Like Poles is one of the most polarizing GMs out there, right? So just getting quarterbacks in the right situation is half the battle. Then it's just plug and playing the talent around him to make him reach that next level. And Kevin O'Connell said it best. young quarterbacks don't fail organizations. Organizations fail young quarterbacks. And you look at the run of young quarterbacks who have faded out and not been given another chance versus quarterbacks who were really bad to start, got another chance. I mean, we see it with Daniel Jones this year, Sam Darnold last year, and now he's playing lights out for the Seahawks this year. Like, it really is an organizational effort to get a quarterback to play well. And that's going to be the biggest thing for Cam Ward is finding someone, a coach who, or even an offensive coordinator, if they decide to hire a defensive-minded head coach, getting them on the same page, being like, we want to develop you this way. Here's what you're good at. Here's what you're not so good at. Let's mitigate that and make you a really damn good quarterback.
Yeah. And let's talk about one of those guys that we mentioned in that list, Bryce Young, and his Panthers as they took down the Cowboys 30-27. You kind of mentioned how Bryce Young's kind of been slowly progressing, but consistently in the right direction. Where do you feel like that kind of came to a head this past Sunday to help the Panthers kind of get even on the season at 3-3?
I will start off by saying it helps when you play the worst defense in the league. And the week before you played the second worst defense in the league, right? But all those points aside, right? Like Bryce Young obviously struggled a little early on the season, but then he goes and 30 pieces the Falcons, who have one of the best defenses in the NFL and just showed out against the Bills last night. Then he plays pretty well against the Dolphins and then has a really good game against the Cowboys. And I think what he's doing well is just those first few games, and kind of a theme of him throughout his career is he's making dumb throws and dumb decisions and not mitigating pressure well. And he did a really, really good job of that this time around. If we just look at his raw passing numbers, 17 of 25 for 199 yards and 114.8 passer rating. Besides passer rating, those numbers seem okay, but I want to just paint a picture. He had a 90% adjusted completion rate because he threw the ball away 4 times. So that cut a pretty decent chunk into his completion rate. He had one big time throw, which is fine, but 0 turnover worthy plays despite the 1 interception. I believe that was T-Mac. He had a drop pass and went into the defender's hands. That happens. That's why turnover worthy plays are a useful stat, because even though Bryce did throw a pick, he actually played pretty mistake-free the entire game. Not pretty mistake-free, actually mistake-free for the entire game, right? Specifically when he was trailing. This is a part of Bryce Young's game where he's normally been lacking, but trailing against the Cowboys, he was 10 for 10, 125 pass yards. All 3 of his passing touchdowns came when they were trailing, and he had a perfect 158.3 passer rating. If Bryce can continue to protect the football and come up big when his team needs him to, he is going to blossom into a good quarterback. The Panthers are going to be better than everyone expected. I mean, they're 3-3. Most people thought they were going to be 1-5, 2-4 at this point in the season. And they've got some gritty wins in that process, right? And they could be 4-2 if they had a good comeback against the Cardinals in week 2, right? Like, this is a team that's very close to being on top of their division, if not for the Bucks being the Bucks, right? But to help with that, Rico Dowdle said all week, the Cowboys need to buckle up if they want to stop me, right? He challenged them to buckle up. He said something along those lines, but Rico buckled up and this Cowboys defense did not. 30 carries, 183 yards. He had 94 yards after contact, which is roughly 3.1 yards after contact per attempt. This is the funniest part. His longest run was only 15 yards. So his average was a legitimate average. It wasn't like, he was averaging 2.5 to 3 yards a clip and then had a big 80-yard run that like shot his average way up. No, he was cruising 6 yards a carry most of the time. 10 first downs. And then in the receiving game, 4 catches for 56 yards and 152.9 rating when targeted. The emergence of Rico Dowdle is going to be really interesting to see how they manage him and Chuba together. A lot of people think Rico's got the job. If a team has 2 good running backs, they're going to use both running backs. Like Chuba's a damn good running back too. Rico's a good change of pace guy. But he also showed when he gets the rock a ton, like he did the past 2 weeks, he can be really, really effective. And that was really cool to see. But again, just like with Bryce Young, did play against 2 of the worst defenses in the league. I hope he can keep this up or something close to it at least. But just a really solid game from Rico once again.
Yeah, can I ask you about Ted McMillan? I mean, he had 29 yards in over 3 catches for 2 touchdowns. Nothing really super crazy in the deep game. His longest was 19 yards. Could you talk about, where both of his touchdowns came in the game and just kind of how they are a good example of that connection between him and Bryce Young and kind of what he offers to the Panthers offense?
Yeah, I know one of them, pretty sure it was a jump ball into the end zone, and another was a mid deep crossing, not mid deep crossing, but like a mid route right over the middle, right? And into the middle of the end zone. That is where we've seen a lot of their production come from, is those jump balls, those tough catches over the middle. And if it's against off coverage, it seems like Bryce looks to him right away if it's a short route. Like if it's a slant, a drag, a speed out, like if his guy's playing like 8 yards off, Bryce is looking there right away and just throwing it to him, right? So like even though this game wasn't his best game in terms of, constant targets and constant production, those were his first 2 touchdowns on the season for the rookie, right? And he is, if he can keep up this type of production, right? Like if, let's say he's not having a big production game yardage wise, but can do stuff well in the red zone, getting open, making contested catches, right? Like that's just going to make him a much more dynamic and versatile player, because teams might start to sleep a little bit. Like, oh, he's only got 1 catch. He's not doing anything. Then out of nowhere, he springs off 2 touchdowns because he got better leverage on a DB, right? Like that connection between those two is going to be like Bryce Young has been missing someone to get deep passes and be a really good contested catcher. T-Mac does that for him, and that elevates Bryce's game, right? Like, and this guy's a rookie, and Bryce is already thriving when he's targeting him. Imagine 3 to 4 years from now when Bryce is on his second contract, the Panthers have a better offensive line, because they have a good offensive line now, but they want to improve that area. And T-Mac is starting to enter his prime. That connection is going to be filthy as long as they keep progressing the way it seems they are through the first 6 games this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the Cowboys side of things. Obviously, they didn't get the win, but big performance from George Pickens. 168 yards, over 9 catches, 1 touchdown. What did you like out of him?
He's stepped up big time in the time that obviously CeeDee Lamb's been out. And it's been in ways that he hasn't conventionally been used before. Back, in his time with the Steelers, he was kind of just used as a deep perimeter threat. Sometimes he would break over the middle. They might design a screen or 2 for him because he's really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. And it just never really came to fruition. And now that he's in a wide receiver 1 role with a quarterback like Dak, who will, like we said 2 weeks ago, he will put the ball wherever he wants and he'll just throw to his receivers if they're open. George Pickens is perfect for that. He had 9 catches on 11 targets for 168 yards, 5.42 yards per route run, which is ridiculous. This one might be crazier. 9.9 yards after catch per reception. So he's getting almost, if you threw the ball to him directly on the line of scrimmage, he's almost getting a first down every single time. Like that's, obviously that doesn't happen all the time, but like just contextualizing it, that's pretty sick. And that's with almost an 11 yard average depth of target. Like he was getting targeted downfield and getting a first down after he was targeted after the sticks on average. Mm-hmm. Like that is just insane production. And how the Cowboys are using him is on those deep mid crossing routes, right? Like whether it's, attacking the split safeties, or it's hitting a dig over the middle, or you're just hitting him on a short out route and then he's gaining yards, which is what he's good at, right? Like they got the ball to him in so many ways on so many different types of routes. And that was with him being the first read, second read, third read. Like Dak didn't go to him first all the time, and he didn't look at him first all the time. But when he did and he was open, Dak made sure to get it in his hands, and Pickens did the rest after that. Like this was probably the best game of his NFL career. And that's saying something because he's had some good games, like very much a boomer bust player in the early parts of his career. But he is showing that he can be someone who can absolutely transform an offense when he's being utilized how he's been utilized the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and this Cowboys offense has looked good, right? I mean, Dak, we talk about how good George Pickens was this past week. Dak is second in the league in pass yards and pass touchdowns. But it's this defense that's either giving up games for Dallas or just keeping things way too close. I mean, look at the Giants game, right? They entered that fourth quarter with a 1-point lead, and then they let up 21 points to New York to force overtime. The Packers, they also entered the fourth quarter up, and then the Packers outscored the Cowboys 17-14 in the fourth quarter en route to a tie. So for you, I mean, are there teams in the past where you've seen their just the blame so squarely on the defensive side?
Mm-hmm.
And second part of the question, like, where is it specifically that if it's not just everywhere that they're struggling to maintain and hold Dallas' leads?
To answer your first question, the Ravens last year, the difference between both these teams, though, that the Ravens had star power. They had guys who were proven assets in the NFL and were proven quality starters, and the defense just wasn't clicking, right? So we have the Cowboys, who really only have like one or two guys who are kind of household names, and everyone else is just kind of spot starters who are being asked to start full time and play full time. That does not bode well for the success. The last defense I can remember being this dwindled down, and not even dwindled down, but just totally lacking in depth, and it was totally being placed on them, and the offense was playing their balls off. I can't remember. I can't remember a time where it's been this this much of a contrast between the offense and defense. We could look at that Bengals Super Bowl run, but they did have some pretty good players on the defense in that year. Last year, I mean, the Bengals last year, that's another conversation. That defense was horrible last year, and they still had Trey Hendrickson wreaking havoc. So I don't think we've seen anything quite like what this Cowboys team is. And in order for things to improve, I think Matt Eberflus has to get fired, because he has, he's had success as a defensive coordinator before. And yeah, this is probably the worst defense he's ever worked with, but he's still got good players on it. And the thing is, he's just not putting those players in the right position to make plays when they need to. And I think that's kind of like, he's not dialing up exotic pressures. He's running a shit ton of zone coverage when he has guys who can run man coverage, like Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs. Like, they aren't as good as they were a couple of years ago, at least from what we've seen over the past year and a half. But they are good man corners, and he just refuses to run man coverage. Like, that right there is one of the biggest tells of coaching malpractice. And because of that, quarterback has time to pick apart defenses, kind of find the soft spots in the zones and keep the ball moving. And that doesn't allow the pass rush to get in there, because the quarterback, because he can just look and throw and find soft spots in the zone, the pass rush has no time. Like against the Panthers, who have an okay pass protecting offensive line, they allowed 14 pressures, which is pretty average. And the Cowboys only turned one of those into a sack against Bryce Young, who has a history of struggling under pressure and not avoiding sacks at a high rate. That right there is like one of the biggest tells this defense is not where it needs to be. In terms of tackling, of the 199 pass yards that they allowed, 95 of those came after the catch. They're missing tackles. They're not making good plays in the secondary. And then in the run game, they allowed 216 rush yards, which is never good. But how are they allowing those yards? 2.81 of those yards came before contact. So the Panthers got the ball almost 3 yards down the field before someone touched Rico Dowdle and Trevor Etienne. And then after contact is even worse, 2.87 yards after contact. And again, their longest run of the day was 15 yards, at least from Rico Dowdle. So it's not like he broke a tackle and sprung one for 50 yards. They were allowing that per clip. So when you're allowing pretty much 6 yards per carry, right? It's 5.68. And they're getting half of that before contact and half of that after. That just shows me your defense is soft. They're allowing themselves to get run over. They're allowing quarterbacks to find soft spots in the zones. And you have a defensive coordinator that's just calling the most vanilla shit you could ever call for defense. He's not running stunts as much as he should, because he's got athletes on the D-line, and he's not utilizing them. He's not bringing linebackers on blitzes consistently, because Maris Liufau he's got a nose for the ball. He's forced a ton of fumbles. He's broken up a couple of passes. He always seems to be where the ball is. Like, I'm not going to say he's a good player yet because he's still young in his career, but he's showing flashes of really good linebacker play. And he just doesn't utilize him in ways that he should. Like, there are guys on this defense who can contribute and can be good players. But when the scheme's not there and you're running vanilla stuff and the offense knows it, they're just going to move the ball easily on you. And I think it is the defense is more of an indictment on Eberflus. And on top of that, Jerry Jones getting rid of one of the best defensive players in the league, which we've talked about multiple times. But I don't think it would have mattered if they had Micah, to be honest. Like, they'd probably be a little bit better. But I think this would still be a bottom 10 defense, even if Micah was on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot for the Cowboys to work on the defensive end. But let's move to two of their NFC East opponents who played each other in a pretty wild Thursday night game. Mentioned again, I just want to say again, head to the House Enterprise YouTube channel for a full breakdown of the Eagles' loss to the Giants from an Eagles offensive perspective. But tonight, we really wanted to get into the Giants and
for sure,
kind of the emergence of what could be a really fun duo in the NFL for, this next generation, right? And that's obviously Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo. So let's just go over the box score real quick. Jackson Dart, 17 for 25, 195 yards in the air, 1 touchdown, sacked twice, not great. But Cam Scatterboo, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns, 19 carries, and he's really cemented himself as possibly the most fearless running back right now in the league, and he's only a rookie. So, Jordan, for you, I mean, what is the identity of this offense? Like, what is the standout aspect of the relationship between this quarterback and this running back that allowed them to, get this win over the Super Bowl champs?
You hear a phrase in football a lot called 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and that's usually reserved for really run-heavy attacks, especially in the high school and college level. The Giants are 5 yards in a car crash. Like, with how Scatterboo and Jackson Dart play, like, Scatterboo is, someone said in the pre-draft process, if you need 3 yards, Cam's going to get you 3 yards. If you need 1 yard, he's going to get you 3 yards. If you need 10 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards, right? Like, it's like he's just this constant back who just turns away at the defense, and he'll spring one every once in a while, but typically he's going to get 3 to 5 yards a clip just from running into dudes and running them over. And I think that's kind of perfect for what Brian Daboll needs in this offense, because he'll get the explosives through the pass game. Like, he's a really good pass game designer with attacking the intermediate part of the field over the middle, and Jackson Dart's getting better in that area. But he's also letting Jackson Dart just develop and just be like, hey, we're going to give you some easy passes here. Here's a quick missile screen behind the line of scrimmage. Okay, here's an RPO. Just read the linebacker. If he bites, throw it. If not, give the Scatterboo and let him get 4 to 5 yards, right? Like, he's designing the offense very similarly to how Jackson Dart operated at Ole Miss. And every once in a while, he'll take the deep shot. Not having Malik Neighbors, and specifically for this last game, Darius Slayton did not help that because they didn't really have a deep guy, because Jalen Hyatt's supposed to be that guy, but he just he's not turned into it. So they just kind of had to pick apart at this Eagles defense in the short game. And no matter what Fangio called, it seemed like he had an answer with his arm. And if not, I mean, Jackson Dart was throwing his head into piles and diving for first downs that no other quarterback really would be taking risk on, right? So you basically have, I don't say knuckleheads in a bad way, but, knuckleheads who don't care for their body safety and just throw themselves at the defense. Like, that's going to get guys fired up. Now, both of their careers are probably halfway over, but no, but in all seriousness, Scat's a really fun player. He was one of the most fun players to watch in college, and I probably mislabeled him as a fun college player who may not be that good in the NFL. But we've also never seen a running back like him who, like, maybe prime Peyton Hillis is the next closest thing we've seen to a running back who can just play after play after play, run into you and still be getting the same yardage run after run, and he just doesn't tire. And normally running backs who are like that in today's NFL are reserved to like 5 to 10 carries a game. He's doing it for almost 20. Like and sometimes more than 20. I think he had 25 the week before, right? So like 44 carries, and you're just lowering your shoulders and running straight into 2 to 3 bodies at a time, and he's gaining yards every single time. Like, that's a really good identity and culture builder. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last throughout their careers, but in a very important year in Brian Daboll's chapter as a head coach, those are the type of guys you want in this building.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, I like that comparison to Peyton Hillis, because it kind of gives me my next question is, if you're a guy like Cam Scadaboo, how do you maintain that explosiveness, but don't, you emphasize a little bit more longevity than a guy like Peyton Hillis?
Yeah, that's going to be a Cam Scadaboo and Giants coaching thing, right? Like, if Tyrone Tracy can come back and get back to full health, and they can spell Scadaboo here and there, right? Like, that's how you get that longevity. But when you have someone like Scadaboo who can just run people over and over and over every single play, it's kind of hard to not have him on the field. And it's not that Tyrone Tracy can't do that. Like, he's a former wide receiver, so he's going to be used as a receiving back most of the time anyways. Mm-hmm. But Tyrone Tracy showed his rookie year that he can be that kind of guy who can run through someone or juke someone out of their boots and get extra yards that way. So I just hope this organization does not get, dead set on, well, we need these extra yards here and there. Let's put Cam Scadaboo in there all the time. Like, you don't have to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so I just hope, like, right now Cam is in that bruising back mold. I hope the Giants don't also keep him in that bucket his entire career. I hope they bring in someone else who can kind of take those hits away and then use Scadaboo in the receiving game, because he is a decent receiving back too. Like, that's not his forte, but he can do it, right? So it's just a matter of balancing these two, maybe adding a third running back who's not Devin Singletary, who can kind of give more speed and more juice vertically down the field. So this way those two can just play their game in the short to intermediate area as rushers and receivers.
Yeah, and before we wrap up Cam Scadaboo, I mean, if you want to keep yourself fired up, if you're a Giants fan, you want to keep yourself fired up before their game against the Broncos, and you haven't watched this yet, go watch his highlights at Sacramento State. People were kind of sharing those around again this past week, and man, like, it was some crazy stuff. Some real just insane football. Let's move on to the defensive end. Brian Burns, 2 sacks, 4 stops. What did you like out of him?
He was just used in ways I haven't really seen him used before. In Carolina, used primarily as just an edge rusher. And early on when he came to the Giants, kind of uses that. But now they're using him with coverage drops. Like, I broke it down in the film. There's a play where the Giants run a fire 2 zone, which basically means you have a cover 2 shell over the top. So you have 2 deep safeties, 2 defenders in the flat, typically your corners, and then 2 linebackers over the middle, typically. But how the Giants ran it is that they blitzed both of their nickel corners, or one was a strong safety, one was the nickel, blitzed them both, drop one of the corners to a deep half, and then to take over the 2 zones over the middle, because they blitzed the linebacker, or they put the linebacker out into the flat, they dropped Brian Burns into one of those mid-hook zones. And just seeing the ground he can cover, like, he doesn't even need to have good coverage skills, but his athleticism to cover ground, like, Hurts was looking his way and was like, well, shit, I can't throw there because he's in that area. I got to check down to my dig coming backside. Like, that's the type of player that Brian Burns can be. Is he doesn't have to rush the passer every time to feel his full impact. And, like, people will say, like, he doesn't get double-digit sacks, so they don't think he's a good pass rusher. Like, no, he's a good pass rusher, but he just pass rushes a lot, so the rates aren't as high as they can be. I think with a defense that has someone like Kayvon Thibodeau, who's your big, beefy edge, you have Abdul Carter, who's your super speed athletic guy who's a rookie, and you can put him wherever. Dexter Lawrence, who will just bull rush everybody no matter where he's lined up. Like, that allows you to use Brian Burns in ways he hasn't really been used before. So I want to see the Giants do it more. Like, I'm always apprehensive to dropping edge rushers into coverage, especially when the skills aren't there, but the athleticism is more than there for Brian Burns to be able to do it at a high level and keep this defense unpredictable And Kayvon probably had his best game of the season against the Eagles, and it was because they didn't know if Brian Burns was going to be part of the pass rush. They didn't know where the blitzes were coming from, how the stunts were being run, because of how they have unlocked Brian Burns and moving around this defense and doing different things between run stop, pass rush, stunts, coverage drops. Like, when one or two guys are unpredictable and they're really good in their unpredictability, it opens the door for players who are kind of, I don't want to say one-trick ponies, but are only good at one thing. And I think that's going to really open up the rest of this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's move into the game that surprised us the most, which was Bills-Falcons on Monday night. Falcons obviously getting a 24-14 win at home. I mean, look, Michael Penix had a solid game, 250 yards, a touchdown, 20 for 32. But, I mean, the real story of this game is just how limited Buffalo was on offense. Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. James Cook, 87 yards on the ground. Josh Palmer, 60 yards, receiving. This defense just could not really get anything going. So for you, I mean, where did Atlanta really stifle Buffalo the most?
It was the pass rush, which is something weird that we haven't been able to say about the Falcons in a long time. And we talked about this in our team preview. Like, if this pass rush is going to be as good as it looks on paper, we could be looking at a really good defense, especially with Raheem Morris running the ship, right? Mm-hmm. And this game was the epitome of that. They had 17 pressures, 4 of which they turned into sacks. And they had 4 players post a 20% win rate against true pass sets. Divine Diablo, who's an off-ball linebacker, was winning blitzing against true pass sets, which is very weird to see. David Onyemata, one of their defensive tackles, had a plus 20 win rate in true pass set situations. And then Leonard Floyd and Jalen Walker, their edge rushers, also 20 plus in those situations, right? So this is a team that doesn't usually have premier pass rushers. And they had a game where 4 guys had premier pass rush levels in those true pass set situations when you have to go in and get a sack and you have to get it in a clear passing situation, right? Like, those are all really good metrics to have. And then AJ Terrell has been one of the best corners in the league this year. He's kind of been, when I say up and down in his career, we're talking about a guy who's either top 5 or he's top 20. Like, I'm not saying he ever gets bad. He's always been a good corner. But now we're back in that upward motion where he's one of the best corners through the first 6 games, right? Mm-hmm. So he's been a huge part of that. I mean, Jesse Bates has always been good. He's taken a little bit of a step back this year, but still always a good safety. And then Caden Ellis is just, you plug and play him anywhere, and he's going to fill a hole and fill a role that this defense needs. So when you put all that together, the Bills just couldn't stop what this front 7 was doing, and it really impacted how Josh Allen was attacking the secondary.
Cool. And then offensively, I mean, the Bills defense they couldn't stop Atlanta on the ground. So what happened there?
Yeah, Daquan Jones not being in really helped them. He's kind of been a career nose tackle. They do have Deone Walker, who's, he's got some back issues that dating back to his junior year of college. But this is someone who had a lot of juice and a lot of explosiveness. And we talked about it in the preview episode. I believe we talked about Deone Walker a little bit. But, he's kind of that next step to be the nose guy. And I just don't think he's got enough experience to be a good nose in the NFL at this point. Like, he had a couple of pass deflections and a couple of nice run stops. But when they were running, it was not almost always, but the majority of the time it was to his area. Just because he's a rookie and he's dealing with back injuries, he becomes an easy target for defenses to pick on. But, this defense, much worse than anticipated all around, allowed 202 yards to running backs last night. 188 of those yards came after contact. Missed tackles were a massive issue. They had 9 missed tackles on run plays and 19 total. And it wasn't even just the missed tackles. It was the run fits and taking up lanes. Like, their corners were collapsing inside a ton. And that allowed Bijan to push the edges of the defense, allow the corners to come inside, and then he would have, 5 yards of space between him and the sideline, right? And so he would just abuse that. I mean, when we saw that 81-yard rush he had, like, he just made a nice cut to spring himself loose, and then he just let the corner try to make a play he's not supposed to make because the safety's there, and then he bounces it outside and springs it, right? Like, that's that right there is where they won and lost the game, was their tackling and their run fits. And then if we look at the pass game, 250 receiving yards allowed, 145 of those came after the catch. They allowed over 7 yards of yak per reception and 110.7 passer rating allowed. Like, that's not going to get it done in the secondary. I mean, the secondary is pretty suspect coming into the year, especially with a young group at the safety spot or an experienced group at the safety spot. But when your run defense and run integrity is not that good, you don't have someone in the middle who can just muck things up inside, and you're missing tackles all over the place, like, the defense is just not going to do it. And I mean, when you're playing an offense like the Falcons, that's just a recipe for disaster.
And look, let's stop talking about how Buffalo messed this game up and give some credit to Atlanta, right? Specifically in that run game, let's give some credit to, obviously, Bijan Robinson. 170 yards in 19 carries for a touchdown. He's really been the workhorse for Atlanta's offense so far this season. Could you talk about, how much of this offense runs through Bijan?
Yeah, I mean, he's the focal point, right? Like, Drake London's a really good receiver. Kyle Pitts obviously brings dynamic athleticism, and the offensive line's solid, right? And Tyler Algier, good spell back for him. But the Falcons' offense, if they don't have Bijan, does not exist the way it does, right? So total offensive yards, the Falcons have 1,894 of them. I believe they're averaging like 370 over the course of 5 games, right? Bijan has accounted for 822 of those yards, which is over 43% of the offense. If we're talking single player, his yardage share across the entire offense for their offenses respectively, the next closest player is Christian McCaffrey. He has 780 total scrimmage yards, and the 49ers have 2,242 yards of total offense. That's 34.8% of his yardage share. So Bijan has pretty much 9 points higher of yardage share than Christian McCaffrey, who's been one of the best running backs in the NFL for a long time, right? What Bijan is doing is unprecedented. And teams are going to, he's going to regress back to the mean. Teams are going to start to buckle up and figure out how to scheme up and stop him, whether it's they bracket him with a linebacker and a safety when he's coming out of the backfield, or they overload one side of the run game and they just trust their guys to be in space to make a play. But Bijan is so dynamic, I don't think it's going to matter because he's a great receiver out of the backfield. Once he makes his one cut and gets through the line of scrimmage, he's exploding and he's just getting more yards than are expected based on his burst alone. And the offense is perfectly tailored. They were using him in so many weird ways. Like, they had him lined up out wide and then would motion him and run him on a jet sweep. They would put him out wide again and he would motion behind the quarterback. He would be in the backfield and motion out to the slot really quickly. Like, it's not just he's doing it solely out of the backfield. They're putting him wherever they want and using motion to create tendencies and giving him these really good rush angles to attack the defense.
Yeah, that's the next question I wanted to ask you, actually, because, I kind of want to talk about, what in Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator's playbook, that you really like the most that has allowed Bijan to succeed.
I think they run outside zone better than anybody else in the league. And that comes from the McVay tree, right? Like, McVay tree is usually man concepts like duo, blast, power, like those gap style runs. So to see Zach Robinson transform into the zone running guy while using the same, because usually with zone blocking, it's obviously you're blocking a zone, not an area. Or you're blocking a zone, not a man. That's why it's called zone concepts. Like, you have inside zone, mid zone, wide zone, whatever you want to call it. But he uses the aggressive blocking of man concepts, specifically duo, and applies it to zone style runs. So instead of them blocking an area and picking up whoever comes into it, they start through the first 2 steps attacking a man and then allowing their alignment to be athletic and get into space, and then it turns into zone after that. And that helps dominate the line of scrimmage, right? Because when you're getting double teamed, your first thought is, okay, I have to address one block, then address the other. But when you start doing that and then it becomes just a one-on-one block with who's ever got you, like, you have to steer completely different as a defensive lineman. Like, you have to attack the pads differently on a one-on-one block versus the double team, right? So it forces defensive linemen to play differently, which makes them play slower, which allows these gaps to develop, and then they just burst and they just go, right? Like it's a really cool blend of taking man aggressive style blocking and applying that to zone style schemes. Like I've never seen anything like it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, love that. So some really exciting stuff for the Falcons on the way. But for Bills fans, lost to the Pats, lost to the Falcons.
Almost lost to the Saints.
Yeah, almost lost to the Saints. 1 point win against the now 1-5 Ravens. What's the situation? How are you feeling? What's the panic meter at? I don't even think it needs to be that high. That's not me saying it needs to be that high, but is it twitching a little bit? I don't know.
No, because it took Josh Allen having his worst game of the season, and just for whatever reason, Joe Brady not utilizing. James Cook's last touch came with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, right? Like James Cook is a dynamic playmaker, like, and you were missing. Josh Palmer left early with an injury because he took a nasty spill. You did have Dalton Kincaid. You were missing pieces on your offense. Get the ball in his hands, especially when you're down by 2 possessions. Like I'm the first one who will say teams really shouldn't be dumping it off as much as they should. But this is probably a moment where they could have said, yeah, let's target James Cook 1 or 2 times a drive in the pass game. And one could be a screen and one could be an angle route upfield and just let him make plays with his feet, right? Like they were just missing that part. So I think Joe Brady and Sean McDermott will go back to the drawing board. They'll figure out the stuff offensively. Defensively, they just got to get healthy and they got to get better at tackling. And that starts with Sean McDermott, right? Like all the woes of this defense fall on him. And that's been their Achilles heel. Like that's been their crutch throughout Sean McDermott's tenure, is that when the defense needs to nut up and shut up, they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's wrap up the 3 games that we liked, and let's move into some other headlines for the week. Obviously, the big one we talked about, Brian Callahan fired. Joe Flacco traded to the Bengals. I mean, I feel like everyone's already talked about it to death.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the guy that is now kind of getting dubbed the king of the, in brackets, AFC North?
Yeah, it's whatever. They needed an improvement over Jake Browning. Is Joe Flacco an improvement at this point in his career? Sure, but that's because Jake Browning has just been so bad this year. And it's a shame because he played well when Joe Burrow was out 2 years ago. But, it's not a needle mover for me. They scored pretty much the same amount of points on offense. They got the same amount of yards on offense as – I mean, there were some flashes in there for sure, especially that Jamar Chase touchdown, at least make it a close game. But, doesn't really move the needle for me.
Yeah. 2 retirements, Zadarius Smith, Charles Leon. Any thoughts on those guys?
Leno, that was a typo on my end, Charles Leno.
Sorry.
Zadarius Smith, kind of an aging edge player, not as effective as he used to be, but this is, I believe, the second Eagles player that retired or second Eagles player that is no longer with the team. That could have been a contributor. So kind of interesting to see he retires midseason. I feel like we've seen more midseason retirements than we ever have before. Charles Leno, I believe, was a free agent, but, spent a good chunk of his career with the Commanders when he was, in his prime. It was pretty solid there. So 2 veterans who are going to be in the Hall of Very Good, not the Hall of Fame, but guys who did have some really, really good seasons when they were in their primes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some injury stuff. Fred Warner, Puka Nacua. What do you think of those guys, being out for some considerable time?
Yeah, Fred Warner's done for the year with a dislocated and broken ankle. I mean, this defense could survive without Joey Bosa. I don't think they can survive without Fred Warner. I mean, I think the 49ers at this point, the injuries are going to catch up. I mean, D. Winters is fine, but I don't think he can step up into the role that Fred Warner was playing. So really, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. So really sad to see him, and he was this year far and above the best linebacker in the league. And he's been linebacker 1 for a while. And there were some questions, when Roquan Smith came to the Ravens and was playing out of his mind. Oh, is he better than Fred Warner? No, Fred Warner's always been linebacker 1 for the past 5 years. Right. And then Puka Nacua, I think it's a high ankle sprain for him. And I think it's a unique situation for him specifically because any other receiver of his skill set would probably be back in a week or two, including the bye. But they use Puka Nacua to block a lot. And he's not just blocking corners, he's blocking linebackers, edge rushers, sometimes D tackles, and he's doing a good job of blocking. So that's just a lot of wear and tear that's going to happen. So I think he may miss 3 or 4 weeks rather than 1 or 2 with an injury like this. So, tough to see that happen for him, and especially even tougher for Fred Warner. But, I think Puka will be fine in the back half of the season and make a playoff push for this team.
Yeah. And then the big trade between Cleveland and Jacksonville, Tyson Campbell for Greg Newsome. Who won this trade?
I want to say the Jaguars because I think Greg Newsome is a better complement for this defense, and Tyson Campbell is, he's a good player, but his first game with the Browns, he was getting cooked by DK Metcalf quite a bit. And DK had the best game he's had since he's been with the Steelers. So, I think that's just him getting used to being this type of defense. But, early returns, Greg Newsome's younger, Greg Newsome's healthier, and seems to be the better fit for this defense. Is younger? Let me actually double check that. Yeah, he's 25. I think Tyson is 26. He might even be 27. No, they're both the same age, 25. Interesting. 2 young corners getting traded. I think they just both fit their schemes better now. But, early returns, Greg's the winner there. But I think long-term, it's going to be a pretty even trade throughout the end of it.
Cool. And then finally, another one like the Joe Flacco news. This one's only been like 2 days, but I feel like it's already been talked about to death. The suspension of Brian Branch after his Juju Smith in the game between the Lions and the Chiefs. Just any thoughts on that?
Very uncharacteristic for Brian Branch. Like, he is not that type of guy. Like, it's the quote's going to bite him in the ass, but he ended it with, I feel like we were getting bullied out there. And it's like, that's going to be like, if the Lions get blown out again, that's going to be like a sports graphic where it's his face after getting, muddled up by the Chiefs. And it's just going to say, yeah, we got bullied. Like, it's going to be one of those things. So not a good look for Brian Branch between the quote and the punch itself. But, I understand where the frustration was coming from. Just wish someone of his caliber in terms of character and playing ability didn't do something stupid like that.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. But let's get into our first lightning round of the pod. Give me your updated top 10 teams.
Number 10, Seahawks are sticking in the top 10. This defense is just doing a lot of things really, really well. And the offense, explosives after explosives. Like, the points per game don't seem great, but Sam Darnold and that JSN connection's great. They need to start using Kenneth Walker III more, and I think that's what's going to take this offense over the top. Eagles at 9. They slipped 8 spots from 2 weeks ago. And it's just been a downward spiral for this offense, and the defense hasn't fit the bill either. Hopefully they can get things corrected against the Vikings, who it's actually a good matchup for them, and they may end up winning that one in terms of scheme. Bills drop all the way down to 8 again. As long as this defense is not healthy, I don't know how much more they're going to be able to hold up against some of the tougher teams they're playing. And they haven't, on paper, haven't played some good teams, but, matchup-wise, haven't got some good challenges. Number 7, the Chargers had an exciting win against the Dolphins this week. Justin Herbert is him, and he will continue to be him, and I will hear nothing further about it. Los Angeles Rams at 6. Matt Stafford just needs to be able to navigate the pocket a little bit better, but it's tough to at his old age. But still really good offense, still a good defense. Even with Puka being gone, I think they're going to be able to mitigate, and some guys like Jordan Whittington are going to be able to come in and make some plays for this offense. Number 5, the Colts. I know I ragged on them a little bit that they might drop off, but as of right now, they still made a handful of mistakes in this game, and they still were pretty much handled the Cardinals relatively easily. Granted, Jacoby Brissett was back there playing quarterback. I know it's lightning round. Just wanted to call it out. The Colts used a wide receiver on a pass rush this past week. Ashton Doolin, their wide receiver 4 or 5, was lined up over the right guard and looped all the way around to the left tackle. I thought that was really neat. Number 4, the Lions. Even with the loss to the Chiefs, I still think they are a top 5 team. get David Montgomery a little bit more involved, get healthy on defense because they were missing 5 to 6 DBs that get significant playing time for this game. Number 3, the Packers coming off the bye week. Yes, had some issues moving the ball against a bad Bengals team, but they moved the ball when it mattered, and they're still a really good team. Number 2, the Chiefs, they have really, really turned a corner with the offense and how they operate and call plays. Want to see Brashard Smith get involved more in the backfield, but that'll happen in time. And then number 1, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield playing at an MVP level. This defense has come time and time again to shut down offenses outside of that Seahawks game. And they're just, despite all the injuries, despite some deficiencies in certain areas of the field, the Bucs are getting it done and are the best team in the NFL right now.
Love it. And then, do you want to do this one as a lightning round? Your 1/3 of the season awards?
Yeah, we can do this as a lightning round.
Right.
This is who I think, not right now, but long-term, who's going to win each award, right? And based on what we've seen throughout the season. Comeback player of the year, Aiden Hutchinson. I believe he leads the NFL in pressures right now. Really solid pass rush. Still there even after a broken leg. This isn't an official award, but we do most improved player. Devin Lloyd for the Jaguars have played much better in a kind of not new role for him, but a little bit different of a linebacker role. Has done really solid, wreaking havoc, forcing turnovers, making good plays. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Tyler Warren. Emeka Egbuka would be my pick, but with him missing time, I think Tyler Warren's, and he's kind of becoming the number 1 option in this offense. I think he's just going to get a lot of opportunities and do really well with it. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Abdul Carter. I don't think anyone is really close. Maybe Carson Schweichinger of the Browns might be close, but Abdul is kind of the guy right now. Protector of the Year, this is a new award to the best offensive lineman. Garrett Bowles has been really friggin' good, and looking at the rest of the Broncos schedule, he may continue that dominant streak. Defensive Player of the Year, not high in the sack total right now, but an absolute game record, Jared Verse, similar to how he was last year as a game record as a rookie. I mean, already one of the top 12 defensive linemen in the league in his second year, doing really solid. Offensive Player of the Year, we talked about him earlier, Bijan Robinson. Don't need to say anything else there. Assistant Coach of the Year, Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offensive coordinator. This offense is night and day what it was from the year before, and they're playing their balls off every single week. Coach of the Year, Liam Cohen of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The fact he turned this team around the way it has with how they've just kind of been fumbling the past few years, and they look like one of the dominant offensive threats in the league, that wins you Coach of the Year alone. And MVP, Drake May. We talked about this earlier. Man. I know as a Jets fan, you hate it. But if he keeps this level of play up with clutch throws, winning games with a not-so-good roster, and just being efficient and protecting the football, it's his award to lose at this point. Like, Baker Mayfield has been amazing, and he has costed them a game and potentially 2, right? Like, yes, they only have 1 loss. Could have easily lost against who did they play most could have easily lost against the Seahawks, but he showed up when they needed to. It's tight between Drake and Baker for me right now. Who's going to win MVP? I give it to Drake just because he's more efficient and does a better job at the football.
Love it. And then 3 for 3 on lightning rounds. We're doing we're picking all of our games for week 7. All right, starting off Thursday night football. The retirement home QB battle between the Steelers and the Bengals in Cincy.
Ooh, I'm going to go Steelers on this one. I think this is going to be the oldest age combo between 2 starting quarterbacks. 41 and 40. That's got to be a record.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'm also going to go Steelers. In London, Rams versus the Jacksonville / at this point, London Jaguars.
I'm going to go Jags here. Just I think missing Puka Nacua is going to give the Rams a little bit of a fit and trying to figure it out. And the Jags have been, really solid this year. I'll give it to the Jags.
Yeah, I'm going Jags here as well. Raiders at Chiefs.
I'll go Chiefs.
Yeah, give me Kansas City here. Dolphins at Browns.
I'm going to go Browns just because this defense, I don't think Tua stands a chance.
Yeah. Ugh, man, I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I don't know. Give me Dolphins. I feel like I've been going
Okay.
with too much on these games. Pats
That's
at
fine.
Titans. Just give me New England.
Yeah, give me New England. I think
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a trap game, but I think it's going to be closer than expected. It's going to be one of those classic winless teams with a new coach running it just out of nowhere blows up for 30 points, right? Like, I think it's going to be one of those games.
All right. Panthers at Jets in East Rutherford. I'm so out on this Jets team. Give me the Panthers.
Yeah, I'll take the Panthers too. Derek Brown made a very interesting quote. Go look it up on Twitter if you have time. But he has a really good mentality going into this game.
Yeah, and I hate picking against the Jets, but I don't know. I'm at a loss for words with them. Saints at Bears. Give me Chicago.
Yeah, I'll take Chicago on this one too. Caleb is playing better. I'm not going to say he's playing good, but he is playing better.
Yeah, Eagles at Vikings. I'm going to go Philly here. Bounce back game.
I'm going to go Philly too, just because they do better against man coverage they do better against cover 2 than man coverage, and the Vikings run a shit ton of cover 2.
Yeah, Colts at Chargers. I think I might have to go LA here.
Yeah, I'll go the Chargers here as well.
Yeah. Giants Broncos. This is tough.
I'm going to go Giants.
Denver. All right.
I'm doing the Giants on this one.
Commanders at Cowboys.
Who are you going with? Did you say?
Oh, I said Broncos. Sorry.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we'll differ on
that.
that.
You said it like at the same time. Commanders at Cowboys.
I'm going to go Cowboys on this, man.
Yeah.
If Terry McLaurin is still out, which it seems like it may be the case because they brought in Traylon Burks of all people in for a workout. Like, I don't think he's anywhere close to being healthy. Give me the Cowboys on this one.
Okay, Packers at Cards.
Packers. Even if Kyler's healthy, this
Packers.
is the Packers all the way.
Falcons 49ers. I think I gotta go. That's Sunday Night Football, by the way. Yep. I'm gonna go Atlanta here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Atlanta too. Just 49ers not having Fred Warner. Bijan's gonna have another big. That's probably gonna be a 200-yard scrimmage game for him.
And then we're doubling up on Monday night again. Bucks at Lions. Give me the Lions. Give me the Bucks here. And then Texans at Seahawks.
Ooh, I'll take the Bucks for the Bucks at Lions, and then Texans at Seahawks. I'll take the Seahawks on this one.
Cool. All right, good stuff, man. That'll do it for our third lightning round and our Week 6 recap of the Basel Pod. If you're watching right now, make sure you follow at all the socials that you see on the ticker. That's all of our House Enterprise socials. Make sure you follow me at all my socials that you see right here. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Blue Sky. Make sure you follow Jordan on X at Jordan Laube FB. And we got so much great stuff coming for you guys. Make sure you check out Jordan's full breakdown of what went wrong for the Eagles offense last week against the Giants. That's on our YouTube channel. Make sure you keep checking in for the Football House on Wednesday nights for all of your top college football picks and college football playoff discussions. And we're so close to college basketball on the way. The Everything College Basketball crew, they've been doing some fantastic breakdowns of all the major conferences. We've got a top 25 for you coming in the next week or so, and then we'll be right in the thick of it. It's a great time of year for sports fans, and House Enterprise is here to help you get situated for everything you need to know. So for Jordan Laube, I'm Sam Basel. This has been the Basel Pod, and we'll see you guys next time.